Thank you, Michael, for joining us this evening on Exodus. Just in brief, just to give you a brief feel of the programme, it's a weekly political programme. Exodus is a weekly political programme. We discuss events that are happening both in Malta and around us, but are affecting Malta. So obviously we feel that Brexit affects Malta. It will affect Malta. It will affect many other countries, but we are specifically concentrating on Malta. We would very much like to hear from yourself, being a representative of the British government, about your roles in Brexit and your concerns in Brexit, because we're obviously bombarded here by different medias, each one with their own agendas, and we thought it would be a great idea if we could actually talk to somebody from the front line, if you wish. So could I just ask you to just give us a brief 30 seconds CV, if you wish, of yourself and your work on the Brexit issue itself?
Well, thank you very much indeed. And first of all, thank you to Alleanza Bidla for inviting me on and for giving me the opportunity. And hello to Malta from London and from Westminster. And I understand that the Alleanza Party also has a campaign for sovereignty as well, just as we have had in the United Kingdom. And I wish you all the best for that. I have to explain that I don't speak for the British government. I'm a Member of Parliament based in Dorset on the south coast. We have many similarities with Malta apart from the climate, but we also rely on tourism as a very important part of our industry in Dorset as well. And we've recently reformed the European Research Group, or the ERG, and this is a group that has been set up to support parliamentarians in Westminster, in London, to ensure that we can support our Prime Minister, Theresa May, in making a success of Brexit. This is what she has said she wants, and we in the European Research Group are there to support her and to ensure that she does make a success of Brexit.
Okay. Alleanza Bidla is trying to highlight our concerns with regards to Brexit. So namely, we're presently concerned with, well, the EU seems to want to punish the UK for daring to shatter what we are terming the failed federalist dream. It also seems to want to make sure that any other country that is thinking about leaving the EU gets a very strong message that whoever leaves the EU is going to suffer, because we are bombarded by this thing that Britain is inevitably now going to feel much pain and will be worse off than it presently is within the EU. And we are particularly concerned, Alleanza Bidla is particularly concerned, that our government is actually going to be taking up the presidency of the EU literally in a week or two's time, and yet it seems to be going into this Brexit issue, which will be, I'm no doubt, which will be the highlight of its presidency. It's going in with the completely wrong attitude because it's already taking, instead of being neutral and seeing what's best for both sides, it seems to be taking one side completely and taking the EU line that, you know, that Britain has to be punished and be seen to be punished for daring to leave this. So let me just break those three components down and ask you your opinion about whether you think that it's correct that the EU is trying to punish Britain for daring to exercise its democratic and sovereign rights to leave.
Well, I think all of this talk of punishment is wrong, and it's very, very unhelpful. Of course, we expect that there will be tough negotiations. That's absolutely right and proper. Whenever there is negotiations of these sorts, when we're looking at economic matters, when we're looking at financial institutions, of course those negotiations are going to be tough. But in my view, it's quite wrong to talk about punishment or anything like that. And in particular, in the European Research Group, we've been looking at British citizens living and working in the EU, and also EU citizens who are living and working in Britain. And to talk about punishment in relation to citizens, in relation to human beings and people, I think is particularly unhelpful.
Well, this is I agree with you entirely, but this is what the feeling is, that when you look at what, you know, Tusk and what the other people are actually saying, they are saying, you know, we're going to be hard, we're going to be tough, and we're going to be discussing this with the panel later on. So what I'm concerned about is you mentioned the people there. It seems to be that it's the people that are presently being used as pawns, if you wish, in the media to be scared on these issues. Would you agree with that analysis?
Well, that's absolutely right. The European Research Group wrote to Donald Tusk, who obviously has been chairing this week the European Council meeting, and we invited him to put this issue on the table, to discuss it, but most of all to resolve it once and for all and for now. And you say pawns, that's absolutely right. I've described it as using people as cards in the political playground, and it's completely wrong to be doing that. We're talking about human beings. They need certainty, and we need to ensure that there is certainty for them. There are approximately 20,000 citizens of Malta living and working in the United Kingdom. There are approximately 18,000 Brits living and working in Malta. These are human beings, and of course those numbers are magnified across the whole of the European Union. We need to resolve this issue now, and then we can get on to the tough negotiations, looking at the economics, looking at the financial institutions, and looking at getting the best deal, quite frankly, for all of our respective countries.
Okay, so when you say issues, can you just, you know, for people who are hearing about this particular issue at the moment, the first time today, what kind of issues are we talking? How are people being affected directly now with these issues?
Well, people, British citizens, for example, living in the European Union, or Europeans living in Britain, they don't know what their future holds. They are in a limbo, and that's what we're most concerned about, because we're concerned about human beings, we're concerned about people, and we want this issue to be resolved now. We want to make sure there's certainty so that they can know that they will be able to live and continue to live and work. Let's take the example of Malta. We want Brits to be able to continue to live and work in Malta, and we also want and expect citizens of Malta to be able to continue to live and work in the United Kingdom, especially those who have been settled here for so long. And this is the issue that I think should be resolved first, before we get into the nitty-gritty of the negotiations about all the other important matters in relation to the EU.
So what are you actually asking the EU, when you say resolve these issues, how are we going to resolve these issues?
Well, we want them to give certainty, to say that British citizens living in the EU and working there now will still have those same rights after Brexit. When the United Kingdom leaves the European Union, those who are already, and I stress and emphasise that, already living and working in the European Union should retain those rights. And likewise, EU citizens who are already, and again, I emphasise and stress that word, already living and working in the United Kingdom should be able to continue to do so. And that's all we were asking. And we were asking the President, Donald Tusk, to put this on the agenda and to discuss it and debate it, and I was very disappointed and surprised, actually, that he was so negative in his response to our letter.
So what we're basically saying here for people to understand is basically we're asking for guarantees that people who are already there, I don't know, with their own business, with their own self-employed, students, people who are working in these countries, whether it's Britain or whether it's British people, so whether it's EU citizens like Maltese citizens working in Britain, residing in Britain, or whether it's British people residing in Europe and in Malta, of course, what you are asking the EU, Tusk and the other people, is guarantees that those will be left there to get on with their lives, so that if somebody needs to invest, somebody needs to get on with their lives, they can do so quietly. Is that a correct analysis?
You have phrased it absolutely beautifully. That is absolutely right. And I fully support our Prime Minister, Theresa May. And she herself has explained, I asked her this very question at Prime Minister's Questions a couple of weeks ago. She's been abundantly clear that she wants to be able to give citizens from the European Union those rights in the future, those people who are already here living and working, those guarantees, as you put it so neatly a few moments ago. But at the moment, Donald Tusk says he won't even discuss it, and to my mind that is putting process before people, and it's the wrong way to do things.
So just again to clarify, I apologize I keep repeating, but just to clarify for people watching us, what you are asking for is guarantees away from the actual, I don't know, economic and political discussions later on. Fight is the wrong word, but let that negotiation happen. Not a problem. But first, you need to stabilise the people who presently don't know what they're doing. And it seems like the EU is saying, no, 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 we don't want to give those guarantees. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. We want the guarantees first, and then the detailed negotiations later. But so far, we've been rebuffed.
Okay, let me tell you why I mentioned all that, because let me show you what our foreign ministers actually said this week in the local papers. The first one, please. Yeah. Next EU presidency, watch out Britain, tough road ahead. So what he actually stated in this article, if I made it, next one, he's saying here, nation preparing to take over, so Malta preparing to take over European Union presidency, says Britain should not count on member states to treat its departure any better than bloc's chief present exit negotiator, who's been extremely harsh. Instead, it could be worse. So he's saying here, under Malta, the exit negotiator could actually give Britain a harder time. Next one, please. London should not count on an easy ride in Malta's 6-month presidency. Britain will have to lose out, he said. So he's actually saying that he's already stating here, before negotiations start, that Britain will have to lose out, and we cannot imagine a UK ending up in a position which is better than they are presently enjoying in membership. If that happens, it would be inciting the other countries to go the same way, Bidla said. These are all clear indications, although he's actually acknowledging that Britain is too much of an economic and diplomatic giant for the EU to turn its back on. He is nevertheless already stating, before even taking over the presidency, that you guys are going to have a tough time getting out. Like we said, our main concerns are, it seems that our presidency is already taken over by Tusk and his colleagues to make sure that the British people will suffer for daring to use their democratic rights. I know that this is a difficult question, but how would you answer to our foreign minister talking such language before even taking over the presidency?
Well, I think all this talk of punishment is looking at it completely the wrong way. I don't think either we in Britain or the European Union institutions and countries should be talking about punishing each other. That's the wrong sort of language. There's been a vote, there's been a democratic vote, a referendum in the United Kingdom. I think people on both sides should recognise that, should acknowledge that, and stop talking about punishment and start talking about how can we make this work so that it's in both of our self-interests. There's a great history between Malta and our country, the United Kingdom. There are so many historic ties going back hundreds of years and many, many links between our two countries. We should be promoting those rather than saying let's punish one country or punish the other country. That's completely the wrong attitude. And that's why I and the European Research Group have been wanting to promote guaranteeing citizens' rights. First and foremost, yes, negotiations should be tough. Yes, it will be difficult. And when we get down to the nitty-gritty, it's going to be hard work. But let's not talk about punishment. Let's be more constructive than that. And that's my simple message.
Okay, ultimately, I mean, just a final comment from my side. I think you're punishing the people who actually just did what they feel is the correct thing to do, you know, and the decision has been made, and I think basically the EU should not be taking this very, very negative, in my opinion, very negative attitude. As you say, they should at least consider the people first, the EU citizens first, and there are millions of them on both sides, both British and EU citizens, who will be affected by Brexit. So let's put them first. Let's put the economic and political argument as on a different platform. First, let's guarantee these people's future and present, actually, present as well. So if there is a final message which you would like to give on this whole issue, I thank you very much for joining us, and I would like just to give you the last final say on the matter, and I would also like to wish you and all of Britain, of course, a very Merry Christmas and a great year ahead. Would you like to finish off with the last comment?
Well, thank you very much indeed for that, and thank you again for inviting me onto your programme. And I too, from here in London, wish you and all the people in Malta a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year as well. And I think we should remember the message from me and from the European Research Group is that we in the United Kingdom are going to remain outward-looking. We're going to remain positive, a nation trading with all corners of the earth. And I want to remember our historical ties with the great country of Malta, going back many hundreds of years. I want to look to a positive, bright future, and that's what I think we should be looking towards. And I fully support our Prime Minister, Theresa May, in wanting to make a success of Brexit, and I'm sure she will.
As Alleanza Bidla, on behalf of Alleanza Bidla, I reciprocate and I assure of our support on your wishes. We support the democratic right of your country, and I thank you very much for joining us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Mela dakin l-ewwel intervent tagħna ħammorru għal l-ewwel break u mbagħad niġu lura biex niddiskutu dak li għadna kemm smajna.